by the end of the day, most people are finished. Like by 6, by 5, they're like done. And they don't have time for their own children. They don't have time for their wife. Where will they have time for working on their passion? They want to do something. They don't have the energy. They want to learn something. They don't have the energy.
And they don't know that.
5 minutes of anger, and they could lose about 1 or 2 hours of days worth of energy. They're trapped into social media. Let them delete it. That's massive. That's not like, let me improve it little by little. That's massive.
It is possible for everybody to create a legacy.
Everyone can create a legacy, but not everyone does.
Sarigamagari, pamagari, dapamagari, sarigamagari, nisa. The ANH Podcast.
Hello, welcome back to the ANH podcast. So, Harini, what do you want to talk about today in this episode?
I know I've always been curious about why is there only one Elon Musk or one of some of the greatest names that we've heard of all through history. There's one Albert Einstein. There's one person who discovered ABC. I don't think the world is filled with amazing inventions and people who are like a benchmark of innovation and what is possible to accomplish in their lifetime. Because most times I see people have accomplished, like some of these greats, it could have easily taken 200, 300, 400 years to have gotten there. But they managed to not just invent, but also get it to a space where their invention has become relevant and it's made lives of millions or probably even billions of people easier to a point that you can't even imagine life without it. You know, if you have to go back to how the aeroplane was invented or everything else like the steam engine. I mean, you know, all of those great things. But there aren't, like, we're all humans. There are so many billion human beings, but there's just few that are that extraordinary. So what are they doing so right that the others aren't? Maybe everybody doesn't even aspire to get there, but even if they were to, is it just luck that they land where they are, or what has to come together to create extraordinary impact?
To have fulfillment and to create large impact, one doesn't have to be impactful on a scale like, say, Elon Musk. And while that's great, but that's not for everyone. In fact, if everyone is like that, then who would be the people who are doing the other things that are necessary for creating impact in the world? So as much as Apple, was revolutionary, there are people we haven't heard of who have created big impact by some of their innovations and breakthroughs for Apple to do what Apple has done. What we kind of become aware of are people who are creating big impact and are popular and are a brand behind an idea, a brand behind a way of thinking, a brand behind what drives key stakeholders into that organization. When you look at people like that, they're impact creators, but they're also inventors. They're radical approach to things that are happening, and they're able to, on a large scale, bring in a lot of talent who are each impact creators. So the analogy I have is like, birds of the same feathers flock together. So it's like if you're an impact creator, you're likely to attract more impact creators. And people who are impacting at that scale, they're somehow drawing people who have both the intent and the capability. A lot of times what happens is you find a lot of talent with no intent, and you find a lot of people with the intent without the actual capability. And these are both difficult to bridge, because someone who's deaf is trying to become a musician. It's a very hard thing. It's a very, very, very hard thing. And there are some fundamental capabilities that for most people are developed as a child, and when they develop it as an adult, on very rare occasions, they manage to do it. In fact, one of the things that we specialize is in developing capabilities for individuals that probably was underdeveloped or not fully developed when they were children. For most people, if these things don't get developed at a very young age, then in their evolution cycle, it becomes very difficult later on to develop certain capabilities, as if people are built in a particular way. And if they have a set of things they want to accomplish and they lack the intent, then the intent can't be just making money, right? The intent has to be about being purposeful, because if your intent is creating impact and to have a larger purpose, you're likely to find people like that. So you're likely to have like 100,000 times more productive outcome than if your intent is just to make money. Then the kind of people who you gather are not necessarily going to be productive with you to create something revolutionary. And then you also have the kind of people who have the intent, but they lack the capability on the things that they want to solve. And it becomes a very, very difficult struggle. People can spend 10, 20 years just getting better and not necessarily crossing a threshold where it makes a difference. The biggest game changer for any of these people would be to be so true to their nature, to have such an intent to actually want to change things. And while doing that, having the capabilities. And when we're talking about capabilities, we're talking about a huge set of capabilities, because you're not just an inventor, you're finding inventors. You are bringing something revolutionary to the masses, and that requires huge set of things. Just the commercialization aspect of it, being profitable, the ability to not, lose your family, lose your health, lose your sanity while doing that. Wow, because anybody who's trying to do something big is going to go through a dark time at some point where there is struggle, where there's challenge. You have to invest everything that you've got into it. And when they're doing that, they have to survive, they have to keep up the motivation. And these are capabilities. To not feel depressed and fall sick while that is happening is a capability. So there's the intent and then there's the capability. And I think less than 0.1% of the people in the population have both of these come together at any point in time. They have an intent, they have an aspiration, but they lack the capabilities, or they have the capability, but they lack the intent. The percentage of people who kind of where these two come together, where there's no mismatch. So you can have a lot of capabilities, but your intent is in a different direction. Or you may have a whole set of capabilities, but you lack the completion for the intent you want to achieve. And some people might have all the capabilities and just absolutely no intent. So these are two very important things that have to come together. And I think not everybody need to be famous, but everybody can be impactful. And I think everybody can be impactful and everybody can create big impact. And while they do, it actually helps them as an individual. It brings in a lot of fulfillment, because I think as humans, we're social beings and we want to be contributing as much as possible. Other big thing is a lot of the impact creators you see, they sometimes have to go through avoidable challenges or circumstances in which they develop the capability. So the analogy I have is, when you melt gold, you actually put it in a forge. There's like, or any metal, you heat it up and it goes through a forge. It's a melting process. And from there, you refine and get the pure metal out.
So does that mean one has to be willing to pay the price?
A lot of these people were thrown into it. It's not like they went into it. Like, for example, you look at the revolutionaries, like the people who changed the course of history, like Nelson Mandela, or any of these great, people who were revolutionary. They were born at a wartime. A lot of them were born at a wartime. So they're in the midst of a crisis and they're in the midst of discrimination. And it's because they went through that, they got refined, their capabilities to survive. They were in the midst of conflict. They have to do something to just stop two people from fighting. They learn influence, they learn persuasion. The question for me that's relevant in this century while we're sitting here is, can there be a scientific way to achieve that degree of capability development without having to be thrown into circumstances? Because back then there were some people who didn't choose to, but they were thrown into it. But they choose how to respond in that. While many didn't, they choose to respond in a way that superior capabilities got developed for them. Now, is there a way that, even when people are not thrown into a situation like that, that it can be systematically designed? Is there a way to design personal evolution that kind of creates similar capabilities as world leaders without having to be thrown into a furnace like that? Very interesting thing to explore. Especially, when people think about, did like Elon Musk or did like Steve Jobs, actually go through any programs, or do they have any scientific mechanism by which they have occurred there? You have billions of people on the planet, and then you have hundreds of generations that has passed by. So if you just multiply that, it's a huge number to find one person in such a large population. And if you want to throw things to randomness, maybe, yeah, it's going to be somebody who's going to come out of billions of people one person who's going to do something revolutionary. But I think most people design a path for evolution, even when they don't know that they are designing. And even some of the names we've discussed, they've all had mentors, they've all met people who helped them get to a different league. The other thing that I think is really important is how early in their life do they get there? So for most people where it naturally happens, by 12 or 13, they're already a prodigy at something. They're really good at something. They become good at something. Like when I talk about Michael Jackson, often I refer to the point that when he was in his teens, he's not only a musician, but he's also negotiating deals, and he's closing these. He's responsible for thinking about branding. So just think about all the things he's learned. He's learned branding, really good. He's learned marketing, really good. He's learned selling, really good. He's learned drama, really good. He's learned singing, really good. He's learned dancing, really good. Good that is above a threshold. And well, if I take these 6 categories, even 3 of them, most people don't become really good in their lifetime.
Yeah.
So just imagine that he got a cycle of evolution where he advanced so fast in some areas. And because of the life experience that came to him, utilizing that, he got the opportunity to advance in other areas. I often think of this as cycles of evolution. Like someone like Michael Jackson got like 5, 6 full cycles of evolution by the time he was 14, whereas others might get like 5, 6 cycles of evolution in their entire lifetime. The science here right now is, can you time compress the cycle of evolution? Every 10 years, you're going to become someone superior to who you are today. Why do you have to wait 10 years for that to happen? And I'm not talking about minor improvements. I can do this now, I couldn't do this. I learned this skill now, I couldn't do this 2 years ago. If you just look at anyone, and an average successful person, you ask them to compare who they were 10 years ago, you would see a massive leap. You will see a leap across every aspect of them. And that's what I call as a cycle of evolution. And for an average successful person, it happens once in 10 years. Now imagine if that can happen every 6 months. So then, even if someone missed out, even if by 14, if they were not like 3, 4 cycles of evolution deep, even when they're like, in their 40, in their 20s, they were not already advanced to like being an outlier or in a legendary trajectory already. If we can time compress the cycles of evolution to like shorter time, like, 1 year, 2 year, then maybe 10 years from now, they can be as if they started when they were 8 years old, when
So
they
you
were
can
5
have
years
like
old.
rapid iterative cycles of personal evolution
Yes.
and take 10 years of what would have happened, just went doing what they were doing, and
Yeah.
then compress it down to like 6 months or 1 year.
Yeah, and if you can compress it down to 6 months or 1 year, then the experiences that follow will shape them up as well. So if you compress their evolution to 6 months, then the next 1 or 2 years will open up a window for the next cycle of evolution that can again happen in
So it's
6
not like
months.
you're just like creating a lab setup where you're creating a bunch of capabilities and they just keep staying in the lab, but it's like you're like fast tracking, probably reverse engineering some capabilities and creating fast capability development, and that leads them to have superior life experiences.
Yes.
And then they become ready for the next league of capability development. Now for most people, for opportunities of that league to come their way, it takes a long time. So it's like a chicken and egg situation. You wait for the opportunities
Yeah.
and for capabilities to develop.
Yeah.
But then for those opportunities to come your way, you need to already have crossed the threshold in your capabilities.
Yeah. The formula we use is capabilities into experiences is equal to evolution.
Wow.
And yeah, if someone made a random person as a chief minister of whatever state they live in or head of their state, that person has limited capabilities. The kind of things he's going to do is not going to be so much, but it'll still change him because the experience of being of a head of a state into capabilities is going to lead to evolution. But if they pick someone who has extraordinary capabilities and he or she is made like the head of the state, now they're going to do things, they're going to do daring things, they're going to expand the thinking, they're going to do really scalable, powerful things that's going to impact the society. Now that'll produce new challenges, they're going to solve that. All of that experience is going to multiply with the capabilities they already have and create a new level of evolution. So the formula is capability that a person has into the experiences they create evolution, not just the capabilities. So what we can do when we're doing time compression is we can increase the capabilities so that they attract certain opportunities that gives them the experience that they otherwise won't get. Like, one of the things that I remember is a lot of participants coming and saying, oh, now they got this promotion. And it's not just that they got a promotion, like one by quarter of a time they were expecting. But after the promotion, they're getting work from their bosses and super bosses that only people 2 levels or 3 levels above them would do. And a lot of times when people ask me, oh, should I take it up? I say, yes, with pleasure. Because imagine you'll wait 4 years to actually get that job. But now you're getting that job. It's okay if you're not paid that role salary, if you're not paid that incentives. But the experience that exposure will give you will multiply your capabilities and vice versa. And finally, your evolution is just like fast track. That's why people are able to grow in like a year in big MNCs, like get 2 promotions and things like that. Because first, the responsibility comes because they see the capability. And then when the person is taking that responsibility and they're figuring it out, the capabilities develop. Then the results come. Then the evolution comes. And when evolution comes, everybody looks at them and then promotes them. True to that, then the new experiences come. And then when the new experiences come, new opportunities come. This entire thing snowballs. But again, like I spoke about intent, not many people, when something comes their way, take it just for the sake of experience. They think of it as, oh, it's too much work. Why should I do it? Because I'm not paid for it. Or this is my role. Let me stick to what I'm hired for. But I think some people have that intent to take their extra capabilities, put it to work, and to just see how much they can create value for the organization, the family, wherever it is. And this doesn't have to be restricted to corporate work. This can even come down to your own house. You have capabilities. Can you take up some responsibilities in the house that will create experiences for you? At least in America, specialist oriented, that if there's a leak somewhere, they have to call somebody who can fix the leak. They have to call someone who has the experience of working with flow of water and the tools and everything else. And one of my friend, he's a European who was brought up in Russia, and he was talking to me about how in Russia, for example, he said that the women in that locality don't respect a man who can't build his own pipelines, like who can't fix their own drainage. Think of it that way. It makes sense, because a lot of times when you get into it, you kind of develop experiences, and some people can see it as low profile work. Why should I do that when I can call in someone to do it? But some people might look at it as an experience that kind of translates into other things that also happens at work. And for the Russian woman, it translates to, is he a man or not? Some Russian women, yeah. So a lot of things that we do, we're always doing things for ourselves. And that's what I like people to understand, is that we are never doing something for anyone else. You might be kind enough to break something fix something that's broken in a house. You might be kind enough to help your neighbor with, or solve that water problem in your street. You might be doing it with a genuine interest to help them. But when you do that, you're also fast tracking your evolution, because your capabilities into the unique experiences you create, that creates evolution. So anytime you're doing anything, you're actually doing it ultimately for your evolution. And everything you do has an impact on you. And a lot of people don't recognize, and it can work both ways. A lot of times when people get into really harmful jobs, like scammers and cheaters and thieves and all of those things, what they don't recognize is it's not only illegal, it's not only something that harms them in terms of their social status and everything else, but the effect it has on their mental and physical well-being. Most importantly, the effect it has on their evolution. Because even 20 years later, they won't be able and capable of doing anything else. So everything that we do as a job, everything that we do as a help, has an impact on you. So when you do good work, you're actually doing it for your own self. And it doesn't have to be just at your workplace. It can be at home. It can be in your neighborhood, wherever you do it.
So, what qualifies the kind of work, Antano? This is also this big concept of dignity of labor. There's some work that's considered to be not so fancy or not of the league that they should be doing. So, do you have some idea, like personally for you, do you distinguish between the different kinds of work? What's high value, what's low value?
People distinguish high value, low value when they put themselves at the lowest point of a hierarchy chain. So let's say there's something that falls down in your house. you go and immediately clean it up. You are not thinking, am I a maid? Because you are the owner of that house. You are the living, rightful owner of that house. Hire a maid to do that, then that maid is doing it because she's hired to do it. And there's a difference over there. If a guest comes in and then something falls down and they get about to just pick it up and clean it up, it's only because in their head they don't see a risk of you thinking of them as a maid. So when people have this dignity of labor, it's because they're already insecure and they're already feeling like they're low in the hierarchy. The people who don't have that kind of a hierarchy in their head would naturally feel ownership to do whatever is required to get it going for themselves and for others.
I think that piece of ownership is so important because sometimes I meet people who say things like, I only want to do something on my own. Why should I work for someone else? And you just spoke a few moments ago as to no matter what you're doing, you're still doing it for yourself because
Yeah.
every piece of work that you're doing is building capabilities. From that perspective, if people just get context into what work is essential at that given point in time, especially when you have ownership. It's one of the prerequisites to building great capabilities, right? To have that sense of ownership doing whatever it is that you do.
Absolutely. Like there's an old military saying, which is like, you cannot lead unless you have served under someone. The only kind of people who think about, I don't want to work for someone, is someone who's insecure, someone who's like, there's a little bit of a pride or whatever it is. Most entrepreneurs don't realize but that they're working for their customers. They're even more responsible. When they get money from an investor, it's not lottery ticket to go and spend. It's liability to go and be accountable to that person.
Yeah.
For me personally, just from a very spiritual space, at the end of the day, I'm accountable to God. You have to be accountable to something, someone. You have to be willing to submit to authority, and because then you can have real authority. There have been a lot of times where there have been a lot of people who have those specific things, are my bosses, are my superiors, are my seniors, and I listen to them and I do exactly what they want me to do, irrespective of whether I understand I want it or not. Because if I'm in the relationship with them where I've agreed that they're going to take the lead, then my job, my responsibility is to follow that. For any person, I think it's good to be somewhere where there's someone helping them get to the next level in something that they're already at the next level, while they might be, a boss in a company. So that idea of, I want to be my own boss, so I'm starting a company, is so disastrous. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong in like having that freedom of just, doing what you want. But if that is the only driving factor, that's very, 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 very scary. I think it's good to sometimes just be led. And it's good to do that because then you actually become a good leader.
And it keeps you grounded.
Yeah.
To have a sense of ownership doing whatever it is that you do.
Yeah.
What does it take to actually do it rather than
Yeah, and my personal piece is own everything. It doesn't matter. You are hired and you are in the lowest employee in an organization, still own it. Like feel like that's your organization. Just the sense that fact this is yours will actually make you a lot
very
more
hard
senior.
for people not to grow with that mindset.
Yes.
It's very, very difficult. But I know in society in general,
Yeah.
in any society, there's a set of people who are doing business, there are large organizations, and then there's the working class. The working class could be in the, just about starting, or they could be doing some of the more humble jobs, or they could be, right in the management. But especially for parents who are in a working class and a working community, working in a government organization or a non-government organization all their lives, the thinking is so different from those who've just been around business. For instance, for me, where my parents have always been very conservative, it's very difficult for parents who've been brought in a very traditional setup, who've been working, who've grown all the way from absolute scratch to getting to the top positions of leadership. The indoctrination that they do with their children, for example, the appetite for risk, is so different in the upbringing of a parent when they're just bringing up their child, when they are not from a space where they can take a lot of risks themselves. There's a lot of society that's telling you to be more safe, or don't take risk. don't do this, don't do that. And there's a lot of fear mongering that happens. And one can't really blame them because they've probably come up from very difficult scenarios and they don't want you to suffer. How does one evaluate this whole aspect of risk? Because we started out talking about some of the greatest legends in the world. And I don't think anybody got there without taking risk.
Yeah, I think I like something that Tony said. You're always working on your current business and your next business at the same time. And I think that's a very valuable piece of advice. So when I say business, I'm not referring to business like business. I'm talking about whatever you're focused on. One of the things that I would like to do, and which we do in our business, which I've done for myself unknowingly, and thank God. But one of the things that has always happened is I'm really good at something. It's giving me money. It's giving me financial security. And while I'm doing that, I'm also getting good at something that I would be doing next,
Like preparing for your next pivot.
preparing for my next pivot. So a lot of people can get into a job, but while they're getting into the job, and it ties back to owning that job, because when you own the job, there are going to be neighboring functions you'll start doing because you want to create value for that company, that organization. And what happens is while you're getting good at it, you're getting good at something else. For a lot of people, when that happens and they're really good at something, they're contributing, they're also taking up the stuff that they're not so good, but they're somewhat good. They're becoming good at it. Then larger responsibilities come in. When I keep expanding, at some point you start becoming ready as an entrepreneur. Your mindsets break, your challenges break, you start seeing opportunities. There are some sorts of problem that you begin to solve that nobody has solved. And when that happens, that's a natural way to become an entrepreneur. And then you have so many books that teach you how, when you get to that space, you market test it. You don't just quit your job. You just start seeing how many buyers are there for this, how many people want what I want to offer. And when you move in that moment, there's no risk. There's absolutely no risk at all. One of the interesting things about the world today is that when you look at Elon Musk, I think it's important to realize that he had a success selling his first business at a very young age. And it was a very simple thing. I think it was to do with taking a telephone directory and making it into a CD. But you have to recognize at that time, the ecosystem had so much education going on. And in that sense, America had this unique opportunity where there's an ecosystem. You could be nobody. You could be somebody who's just, your family has just been working all day, or you've been coming from a poor background, or your parents' business is irrelevant to what's going on right now. You can come from any background, but you could go to meetings, you can hang out with people. Everywhere you see there are startup meetings, you have something in the society that breaks the upbringing and gets people into an entrepreneurial track. That experience at a young age just set like a trajectory for him to be an entrepreneur, to do something with that money, to learn. And there are many other things that he was good at combined to create that unique masterpiece that he is. What's happening today is that level of influence from the society around the world, it's becoming accessible. You could be anywhere in this world except like a couple of places, and you have the same level of exposure. So going back to intent, now you have the exposure, but do you have that inclination to work on something because it fascinates you while you are working on your day-to-day living, your day-to-day job? Last episode, we spoke about health and longevity, and this is one of the areas where health is so important, because by the end of the day, most people are finished. Like by 6, by 5, they're like done, like okay, and they don't have time for their own children, they don't have time for their wife. Where will they have time for working on their passion?
Yeah.
So it's so easy to say work on your current business and your next business at the same time, but it's so difficult to
That
achieve.
itself requires so much capability development.
It does, because it's so difficult. Like just working on your business, your job, your career, and not losing your health, not losing your family, keeping them happy, and all of that, it's a full day thing. Now, how do you sneak in there 2-3 hours of high performance into your passion, into your next great thing?
That's also the most fulfilling thing about, for me, with us doing what we're doing, is
Yeah.
because people come to us with these scenarios. People
Yeah.
come to us with the struggles of daily life, while they're still doing the very best that they can. And in like the shortest span of time, when we identify, when we are able to reverse engineer certain capability development that's missing in their larger set, just that set of capabilities that we're able to develop for them fast enough, we've seen how it's just helped people break free and magically create more time.
Yeah.
Completely like totally tired and didn't have the time or mind space or the health or vitality to do anything else. Now suddenly they have 24 hours is not 24 hours, but 24 hours is like 36 hours or
Absolutely. And
48
time is
hours.
so relative, Harini. And I think most people forget that time is relative. You can have 100 free hours and it can be worth 1 hour.
Yeah.
Or you can have 1 hour and it can be worth 100 hours. Like, for example, let's say you're so totally meditative and you've just relaxed, your body is relaxed, you've been reflective, you've been like, took a break, you've been thinking about things, you've been working out, your body is in its prime. And it's one of those moments where you're like, doing something extraordinary and you're like in that Zen kind of a state, and then you put 2 hours into your business plan, that can beat 200 hours of thought put into a business plan when you're exhausted, tired, body is aching, and you have the tension next day, you have to wake up at a particular time. So, time is very relative. The question is, can you sneak in 2 to 3 hours of high quality time every day? And I tell even 5 minutes, because I speak about this in one of my podcasts, which I used to do as Solar Voice, where I say even if someone can get to 5 minutes consistency a day, it can actually break thresholds for them.
But doesn't that create a false sense of achievement?
It doesn't, Harani, because what I've noticed, for example, with me, the guitar, is if I play 5 minutes of guitar every day, I cross a threshold. As against, suddenly I play for 3, 4 hours is very different from every day there's that consistency. And the other interesting thing is most times that activity itself will take you to 30, 40, 50 minutes. It may not be possible every day, but that minimal commitment of 5 minutes a day can be so much. But here's a challenge: 5 minutes looks so small, but it's not that easy, because we're not talking about 5 minutes. We're talking about relatively high quality 5 minutes.
High quality
That
5 minutes.
kind of, like when I said like 1 hour can be worth like hundreds of hours. Activities that increases their neuroplasticity, and then they learn for 10 minutes, 5 minutes. It's so different from when they're beaten up. So remember, there's a physical and a mental and an emotional component to it. Like, how saturated or not saturated are you? How much energy do you have? What is the neuroplasticity state in your body? And most audience may not know what is neuroplasticity, so I'm going to explain. Neuroplasticity is the ability of the human neurology and brain to do things that they are not until now able to do. For example, when nerve gets damaged, the neighboring nerve can take in the functionality of the damaged nerve along with its own functionality. And in some cases, when people meet with an accident, there's a part of the brain that does get damaged. The other part of the brain takes over that functionality and its own functionality. So, in that sense, dynamically, our cells and nerves and brains can adjust and adapt and add new abilities of the damaged part, form new capabilities and abilities that they couldn't do before. So that's called neuroplasticity. So, like, when one of the research they did is they took drummers and they saw what's so extraordinary about their brain. How is it different from other people? And I found out that because, drummers are using their legs and their hands and they're using everything to play, and that coordination and everything. And I found out that there is a very special circuit between the left brain and the right brain that's formed. Now, imagine this is a physical thing. There's a physical connection that is formed. It's just not mental. It's physical, and it's not just at the level of am I tired or fit or healthy. It's actual components, like new parts are being formed. They're just not parts like a ear or an eye, but like they're a whole cluster of formation in the neurology. There's so much that happens when we do. And because I said everything you do is for you, because it goes back into your evolution. And that evolution is not just mental. Those abilities are both mental and physical. For every evolution, everything that you get to the next level, there is a physical component that's being formed in your body to support that. Our body is infinitely capable. The thing that they don't do so much that I think the medical science should do is that in heart patients, when they cannot do anything else, everything is given up, they can't do anything else, they have a particular therapy they do that for some people starts developing new arteries that were not there. So now there's a block and the heart, you can't do a surgery, the blood is not flowing, no problem, the heart makes a new channel, and there is therapy to do that. But doctors and medical field uses that option only when everything else fails. My proposal would be, even when they do the other treatment, they should start with that because the human body is capable. But the state in which these things happens is called neuroplasticity. The higher the neuroplasticity, the more these things can happen. So when people are working on things, and especially the next things that they want to do, you want higher levels of neuroplasticity. So that's when 1 hour can actually be worth 100 hours. Now, that quality of 5 minutes means a lot. My suggestion for most people, even if you can find 5 minutes of that quality, it means a lot. So, what I recommend a lot of times is if you cannot make time, do it as the first thing in the morning. Let those 5 minutes happen before you start your routine. Because
Is
then,
that your secret to super productivity and creativity and doing all the amazing things that you do?
I think we need to have an episode on productivity in itself, on
Yeah.
how keep yourself to be omni-able, meaning you can work from anywhere on any of the things you want and the resources, reduce the time to think of what to do next. And more importantly, how do you be in a state where it doesn't matter what you're going to do, you're in a high performance state for that, and neuroplasticity is high for it. One of the things that we definitely need to talk to our audience is how do you make more time amidst all the chaos? And we're talking about, every time we talk about time, we're talking about quality time, where that 5 minutes, you have the energy, you have the vitality, you have the neuroplasticity, you have the emotional wellness, you have the focus, and you have resourceful with everything that needs to be there for you to do it in 5 minutes.
Preparation to that could also be weeding out some of the activities that could dumb you down.
Yeah.
Especially because we live in a world where
Social
everybody is
media,
just manipulated with
short form content.
yeah, all of the
Yeah.
algorithms, and that's always dictating what content you see or not,
Yeah.
whether you're prepared for it or not. And the structure, I mean, I think people have just cracked the structure in a way that it's just enticing to just sit on it for like a long time.
Yeah.
Sometimes I give myself like curfews, like I would just delete an app and then I just delete it for like a month and just see what impact it has. Or for starters, just delete it for like 10 days or delete it for like 2 days. And even when people are sitting on social media for a long time, it's because it's giving them something, or either they're looking for stimulation, or most times it could be because they don't have energy enough to do that high quality 5 minutes.
Yeah, so most social media addictions, in my opinion, especially in driven individuals, come from they want to do something, they don't have the energy. They want to learn something, they don't have the energy.
And they don't know that.
Yeah, so now they're like thinking, kuch karna hai, I have to do something, I have to do something. They open the app. And then time goes by and vanishes. And what they don't realize is even 15 minutes on short form consumption, random short form consumption, can actually get their mind into a state where they can't be productive after that.
The drug here is like there may be 10 things that they're consuming, and
Yeah.
one of it might actually come in handy to them, like say 5 days hence.
Yeah.
Now there's this thing of, as I keep scrolling, there's something else that could come up, and I don't know what is it that that could come up. Well, not recognizing that 90% of the time they could be consuming things which could be entertaining. It's not, there's no harm in being entertained, but you spoke of some time back about intent, right? An intentional entertainment where you know you're getting in and you're getting out versus something else randomly dictating.
I think that getting in and getting out is the problem, Harni, because when you close a social media app, you're not out of it.
Yeah.
It still plays in the head. And for most people, it does. And a lot of people try to sleep with that. And it's so terrible because the light from the mobile directly interrupts the sleep. So you could use your phone like half an hour before the bed, and you might think you're shutting it down. But certain cells have been activated from that light, and they're not going to go to sleep. One of the important things about our body is that they're always responding to the environment. And skin is one of the large organs in the body. The skin, one of the most important function of the skin is to respond to the environment, to the light, to the temperature, and give intelligence to the body underneath what to do. So think about this as, there are sensors in some places where you walk by, the door opens. These are called sensors. So when the sensor notices that a person is coming, so sensor is external. It notices that you're coming. It gives instruction to the internal mechanism to open the door or to turn on the light. So your skin is the sensor. Your organs and your enzymes and everything are the internal stuff. Your eyes, your skin, And all of these are sensors to the internal mechanism. In fact, even when you go out in the sun, the first 15 minutes, the sun sends instructions, the ice sends instructions about the temperature and the climate, and the brain sends instructions to the skin on how to adapt to that degree of heat. I personally, if I wear coolers, I have an internal calibration of when I feel like my body's adjusted. It's understood the temperature before I wear my coolers on. But what I'm pointing out is not just about that our body is having sensory mechanism and the internal is responding to it. There are juices, there are enzymes, there are things being made actively based on our response to these sensors. And the mobile light is different from the rest of the light that we are used to. It has a very harmful component, especially at the night before people go to sleep. It activates the sensors in the body, pick up something, and it activates certain things inside the body that doesn't allow for deep sleep. It doesn't allow for the repair mechanism to go on full threshold. So the entry and exit is not how it looks like. The moment you close your phone and throw it away, it's not an exit. What you have been doing has an impact on it. And also with the social media content, if it is not necessarily positive content, it has an impact. And I can tell you so many marriages that are broken, that are ordinary, unfulfilled, just because of the amount of pornography that people consume. And I want to talk about pornography. I don't think pornography is only naked people, doing things with each other. I also think there is another kind of pornography. There is the kind of pornography where trying to induce views by creating the type of visual trickery that gets some men and some women to get excited that they're going to see something naked. This happens at a lot. This also happens at what you wouldn't consider pornography. Part of the brain is searching for information, but another part of the brain, this is both men and women, is searching for a type of pornography. It's very interesting if you look at the statistics of how many people actually go to hardcore porn sites. It's increased both in male and female, and the age group has come so down. So like you have people from the age of 12 all the way to 70 or 80 actually going to, I'm not even talking about soft porn like what I mentioned on social media. I'm talking about hardcore porn. They're going from 12 to 80, and then you have male and female. There's so much increase of pornography, and then what happens is it creates an illusion for people about how people are when they are intimate, and it just ruins their ability to ever enjoy their partner. And now the danger is a lot of times that thing is imprinted in their mind, and they have decided not to watch pornography, but they're watching soft porn. Now I know this because I was working with a TV producer, and she's worked with like some of the big names in the country, film directors, and she said in the TV industry, in the television industry, when they're actually picking episodes, they actually have a demographic where they know if they show soft porn, this demography is going to come and watch this episode every day. So it's not even like a new thing, and people are using this statistically, knowing that this is how the audience consume it. And my problem with that is it manipulates your hormones. Now remember, the male sexual hormone is, there are many of them, but testosterone is a very important component of being a man. And testosterone is one of the reasons why a man can do a workout and get certain results in the body faster than a lady can. It is one of the top hormones for weight loss. It's one of the top hormones for motivation. And when does testosterone come? Testosterone comes to many things, like when you're in a danger and you calm down. And I saw this research on how you act like a tiger is chasing you and you run, and then suddenly you relax as if the tiger is gone, that the testosterone shoots up. And the natural way of doing that is love making. That's what men do when they're actually making love. Their heart goes beyond what their physical threshold is. They exert, and then they have like this deep relaxation. Now, can a man continue and make love is dependent on how much testosterone is there and how less of the stress hormones that create anxiety are there. So this is less and that is more. You have your natural activities. A man with testosterone can lift weights more easily. But what do people do? They watch soft porn. What happens? They get desensitized. So now the things in their life that would have given them a testosterone push
Stimulation.
and stimulation is not doing that. So what do? They go and have black coffee before working out. So now they're compensating. So then what the body learns? It learns, oh, I don't need more of the testosterone because I get something else to stimulate me. And I'm just taking testosterone and amino as one example. Our human body is made of so
So
many
many.
enzymes and hormones, and there's this super balance. But when you are addicted to certain type of content and you get your stimulation from something else than the natural stuff. They did this experiment where they put something into a monkey's brain that gives it happiness. And I don't even know if it's legal and how long ago they did this. And there was a button. So whenever the monkey pressed that, it stimulated that area in the brain that gives that monkey happiness and pleasure. And what happened was the monkey kept doing it until it died. So there is a balance and check in our natural mechanisms. The reward mechanism that gives you endorphins when you accomplish something is short circuited by likes and how many people are seeing things. So what happens is, instead of the natural mechanism by which you feel rewarded, by which you feel fulfilled, by which you feel connected, is short circuited. Knowing it and using social media to get whatever you get from it in your timeline can make all that difference. This is when you get in, and this is when you get out. The impact it has, and you set allocate time for you to come out of that impact fully. That can make a lot of difference at all. And also, as we our topic right now is, how do you make time for, like, do the things you love and the things you're doing and your next business. And social media is just, again, one example of how people actually could make 5 minutes high quality time a day, but they lose it somewhere else. And for some people it's social media, for some people it is anger, because they get something will trigger that anger during the day. It could be some random person on the road, and that's it. Like, they lose 2 hours of energy, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Every time they get angry, and to come back, if you calculate the 24 hours, they have lost about an hour or two. 5 minutes of anger, and they could lose about 1 or 2 hours of their day's worth of energy. And it can be so many different things. If a person kind of looks at what is taking away their energy, that stops them from having that 5 minutes quality time without that brain fog, with that clarity of mind. 5 minutes where there's that sharp mind, energy, then they can put that into their next passion. They can put that into solving the difficult problems in their current work. And when they do, they time compress personal evolution. They get there faster.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so insightful. People find, difficult, especially when they don't realize and they've gone too far, is they're like now trapped by the biochemicals in their body that's doing all the talking. So now it's not willpower that's getting them out of it, or even if they're very, very sharp on their willpower or high on their willpower, they're able to, that also takes a lot of energy, right? To use willpower to propel you to take a particular action and to sustain it is like extraordinary amount of energy. And in that moment when there's a void and you're trying to fill it with something else, and nothing is just yet managing to match the kind of high that you used to get doing whatever it is that you were. And how does one just get out of this trap? Because it's so easy for people to go into a guilt trip, think that they're good for nothing, or they don't have any
Oh, that's
willpower,
another
or
way to
they're
waste time.
useless. Exactly. Or think that they're not motivated. And then
Yeah.
now there's enough number of people around them reiterating some of their very negative thoughts. But all of this is like they may not have recognized something started, or maybe they were just being gamed by algorithms and other apps or whatever it is. Some people could just be deep in a trap where they're like in a tornado of just very difficult biochemicals and not
The irony,
recognize.
Haruni, is that to get 5 minutes a day of high quality requires massive actions. So 5 minutes is so small, but it requires massive actions. So when people are trapped into something, I think they have to go massive. They have to go all out to change that. If they're trapped into social media, let them delete it. That's massive. That's not like, let me improve it little by little. That's massive. Delete it. I remember there was a friend of mine, she had chocolate addiction. I got her to pick all that fine chocolate that she sourced from different parts of the world, and all of that chocolate, all of that cake, and she, with her own hands, put it in dustbin. And that's massive action. I'm not saying that's going to be sufficient.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, at the least, you should do that.
But even
Yeah.
that takes a lot of willpower, right? Like, what are some of those triggers that can even get you into a space where you're able to do that?
The intent that you want quality time for yourself. People can just think about if they had 2 to 3 hours of high quality time. You know, when you wake up in the morning, so amazing you feel, or you just finish a workout and you have that sharpness of mind. Imagine 3 hours a day. You just have that for yourself to work on anything, to become the best in the world at anything that you choose. If you have 3 hours of that sharpness, that energy, and you can put that to use to become the best in the world at anything for the next 5 to 10 years, what would that mean to you? If you can develop a compulsive desire, most people, when they think about what they want in their life, they look at incremental improvements. Okay, now I'm like this, let me get that. Incremental improvements is not motivating to anybody. It's not motivating to them. Their unconscious mind goes, okay, it's the same thing. But if they think about something that's like a big jump, that's so different from where they are, and motivation is like a rubber band. It's the difference between where you are and where you want to be. If it's this much, this is where you are and this is where you want to be, there's no pull, there's no tension. But you take that rubber band and you stretch it, you stretch it, you stretch it. Now this is where you are, this is where you want to be. There's that tension. You let go of this end, and the rubber band takes a flight. That's what motivation is like. It's like the difference between where you are, where you want to be. And so when people say, okay, little by little, first let me do this, and like it's so boring to even hear that. And the unconscious is bored. It would rather go and take like a quick reward than work towards it. So I think people need to get their motivation right. And motivation is a movement. It's not a feeling. Especially when you feel motivation, you can feel good. But when you feel motivation, it's like there's a movement of that feeling. It rumbles in you. It's like you want to do something. And the way you get motivation is the difference. If you can see the difference between where you want to be and where you are. And it's not where you want to be, because that's wishful thinking. That's okay, that's a dream, maybe. And that's good. A dream is good. But if you see where you are and where you want to be at the same time in your mind, if you visualize that, that creates a movement, a moving feeling in your body that kind of gets you to take action consistently. And then making big decisions, deleting the app or throwing your chocolates out, all of that can
What if
become
they feel
easier.
too discouraged by the gap between where they are and where they want to be?
Yeah, so that's a difficult thing. Yeah, if they feel discouraged, then they need to get the capability to not be discouraged.
That's what I love about the approach to personal evolution science.
Yeah.
Is like we have all of these insights, and we
Yeah.
didn't arrive at these insights by looking at like
Yeah.
tons of videos. We arrived at these insights by working with real people,
Yes.
helping them literally time compress, not just helping them get over like limitations, but
Yeah.
we've been in the business of time compression for like 10 years now.
Yeah.
Time compression is a serious business because you're literally saying where you could have gotten in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, I'm going to help you get there in 2 years. Now, that's not a joke. That's for real. Now, when you're making that kind of capability development happen, we've seen literally thousands of scenarios of different kinds of people, validation, iterative capability development, and consolidating all of this. Like when we're like, for example, our approach to when we meet people and when we're helping them with developing superior capabilities in compressed time, we're not just giving them strategies or talking to them about how do you do what you do. We're also preempting what can stop them from doing what it is that they should be doing. Like, for instance, what can stop them from deleting that
Yeah,
app?
yeah.
Like, what can stop them from deleting the app? Or
And-
what
and-
can stop them
From being discouraged, like, or how to stop them from being discouraged.
and
Yeah.
each of these are so like the micro patterns
Yeah.
that each person goes through is so different.
Yeah.
So it's like one piece of insight that when 20 people consume it, the response individually is so different. And having the calibration to know who is it going to fly with, who is it going to tank with, and to actually be able to with precision diagnose and figure out, okay, these are the micro patterns that are stopping you from doing some of the things that you already know you should be doing but you're unable to do. And a lot of times when people are unable to do something that they know they should do, it could either mean prediction or whatever it is that they should do is probably, I mean, their predictive intelligence is way off, or it could be in a deep trap of certain biochemical patterning which needs to be changed. And that again is capability development. And love the precise, razor sharp approach to identifying these micro patterns and changing it. Now, I'm sure it changes for most people any which ways, but when we identify and when we change it for people using procedures and cutting edge technology, it just fast tracks. It just makes the transition into taking some important steps or even risks, or in getting to that space where you can create the high quality 5 minutes to do something. And it's not just one change or two change. When you approach it holistically for a person, what are some of their micro patterns, and today we have so many amazing patterning to actually go and fix it. But most people, even though there are great tools in this world, it's like everybody has those amazing tools, but if you don't know how to build a house with those tools, then they're just tools. And theoretically what's useful for what, but you're not able to build that beautiful palace.
Even if you know how to build, to actually build it.
Right. And
So Harini, I think it's a very important question. How do you make sure people don't get discouraged? Because,
Yeah.
you take motivation, the more you stretch it, the more the force. And one strategy that I recommend to people always is don't have a timeline to it. When you're thinking about where you are and where you want to be, that's enough. Let your neurology take over.
Oh, yeah.
Let your neurology figure out the fastest and the most efficient and optimal way to get there. Don't try to force a timeline to that.
Because that could also come from a space of desperation, right?
Absolutely. And desperation leads to discouragement for most people, because either you recognize it's difficult or you recognize, and it's okay if you wasted 40 years, 50 years, it's okay. Whatever time you have lost is lost. But let your unconscious figure out the timelines. And I think our unconscious minds and our neurology is far accurate with timelines than most times we are consciously, because there are too many variables to consider when you're changing our life circumstances. Let the unconscious figure that. You just stick to this is where you are and this is where you want to get to, and let that be so far apart that it drives you and moves you, and let your neurology do the rest for you.
That is so lovely. To just recognize the difference between what you must do consciously
Yeah.
and when to not like over optimize or over micromanage or try to do things and force timelines on oneself, which may not be ecological because it fights with the natural and conscious wisdom that people are anyway building.
Yes.
So, some of all of this put together, recognizing that today there is a way to fast track capability development strategically if one puts their attention there and gets into a space where they want to do this iteratively. It is possible for everybody to create a legacy, don't you think, Antano?
I think everyone can create a legacy, but not everyone does.
Most people don't because they're either stuck a rut of no time, no money, no energy, bad relationships, and like a whole set of things which are like kind of pulling them down. The solution to all of this is capability development and developing the right set of capabilities at the right time for that specific person, identifying the micro patterns and changing it and continuing to be on an accelerated capability development path, because that would accelerate the opportunities that comes their way. And like you said, experiences, and then there is the evolution, right?
Yeah, the
So
capabilities into
experiences
is equal to evolution.
I love that.
A lot of people have capabilities, they just don't put themselves to do things that gives them the experience. Some people are in a position where they can have that experience, they struggle without the capabilities. When you build the right set of capabilities for the experiences they can have, and then they have it, it creates fast track evolution for themselves. So ponder upon it. What is your next legacy going to be? Remember, you don't have to be Michael Jackson to be legendary. You could create big impact and legendary impact exactly where you are, in the sphere of influence that you have.
With the
And
expertise that you already have.
with the expertise that you already have. And everyone has a life experience that is significant enough to create a legendary impact. So, no matter where you are, no matter how many living legacies you have already created or not, there is the next legacy and it will be legendary and it'll happen while you're living so that you can go on to the next and the next legacy after that. And I'll see you soon in the next episode with something even more interesting.
The ANH Podcast.